I'm Tony Sheppard, and I'm the chair of the International Board for the Certification of Group Psychotherapists. And today I'm interviewing the 2019 Harold S. Bernard Award winner, Dr. Judith Coche. It's good to be interviewing you, Judith.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, we've been on the board together for many years.
We have.
And I consider you a friend.
Same. That's one of the nice things about the board.
Yep, it is. You've trained hundreds of group therapists in your career. What's your best advice to someone wanting to enter the field of group psychotherapy?
At this point in time. So the field has changed dramatically over the last 10 or 15 years as standards of excellence have begun to be expected and even required in certain situations. So probably the best approach is to start with the academics and get whatever training you need, whether you go through counseling or social work or psychology or psychiatry, whatever field you go through, organizational development, you can still get the kind of group training that you need in terms of the academics, the research, the theory, and then move into understanding the practice, and then begin to get supervision. And do that from someone who is certified as a supervisor in group psychotherapy, as we both know. And if you know sort of the right things to ask for, then your entry into the field is a whole lot easier than if you get before some sort of standard-bearing body of people and find out that you didn't do all the right details. And so then, after you get your certification, you then start the lifelong adventure of getting better and better at working with groups.
It sounds like it's important. You said know the right things to ask for. It sounds like mentoring is important, finding someone who can guide you.
Well, I don't know about your career, but in my career, mentors were absolutely key. I chose very carefully. I was very, very fortunate. And I had people who gave me, from their heart, from their soul, from their mind, from their knowledge of research and theory. And it's sort of like being an apprentice and sitting in a group. Did you do that with anybody?
I totally agree. I did. In fact, I had a mentor who brought me to AGPA the first time in 2003. And definitely somebody who had valued group therapy, valued AGPA, and valued the standards, and was the beginning of guiding me. And then I had people here at AGPA who picked up and continue to guide me.
And I don't do that as much here at AGPA, but in Philadelphia, I very often have somebody who is finishing up residency training in psychiatry who co-leads a group with me as part of the supervision and part of the mentoring process, and is then getting credit for that towards certification, so that there is this apprentice-mentor model that people love, because the goal, of course, is not to teach them to be a little me. The goal is to teach them to figure out who they are, which is what makes it so exciting. Right.
Why do you feel it's so important for group therapists to be well-trained? You mentioned that training is the beginning of someone's journey in group therapy, with work and then supervision to follow. I guess talk about the importance of that training and maybe some of the key components that you see in it.
I'm sure you agree, right?
Oh, I agree, totally. It sets the foundation.
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose you and I could go and try and build a house, right? Do you have a lot of training in building a house?
I don't.
I don't. My husband is really good at this, but I don't. So you don't want to see a house that I would build unless I had some training in it. And group psychotherapy is even more ephemeral. It's not like lumber. You know, you don't just put a door up. You have to create the doorway for people to go through to the other side so that they feel like they're growing. And if whoever it is that is guiding this wonderful journey doesn't have the right training in back of them, then it's sort of like the blind leading the deaf, literally. And they may land in a very wonderful place, but it won't be because they had the training in back of them. Whereas the training, and by training, of course, what we mean is what we were talking about. It's formal training, it's theory, which is what kinds of concepts are useful.
Right.
Not what's right or wrong, but what's most useful. And it's research, which is what does the research tell us actually works. And fortunately, we do have outcome research. And it does tell us stuff like that. And in addition to that, it's what are the nuts and bolts of clinical practice? How do you and I lead a group of people to allow them to transform their lives? I mean, it's a daunting question. So without some sort of mentorship and a lot of training, we could lead people very, very far astray. It would be pretty scary.
What have been, over your career in training people in group psychotherapy, what have been some of the most important tools and resources that you've found?
Well, I think that there are two categories of resources. The more natural answer is the academic resources, the clinical resources, the books, the programs, the research, the assessment interviews, the very, very gifted teachers who can make something come alive and can then tell you and lead you so that you know that what you're doing is okay and you can keep doing it, or you need to steer a little bit over that way. So certainly we have all the formal training, which we here in the International Training Board have been very, very adamant about. We have to have certification, we have to standardize it, people have to know what they're getting. But I think there's another kind of collection of resources. I don't know whether you've ever thought about it. And I think about it sort of as the human tools. So it's not the formal academic tools, but I don't know about you, because you and I haven't talked that much about our families. But I had a father who was, first of all, very smart, and second of all, very, very funny. And he could see through a situation in 2 seconds, and there would be some sort of dry humor that some people wouldn't even get, and I would get the nuance of it, and I understood the situation because he had analyzed it for me. That's the human tool. So that if we bring natural resources to a situation and then we add the academic skills on top of it, then we are making the most of that natural attribute that my father had, but then he didn't have the formal training in leading groups.
Right. I'm hearing that, I'm thinking about maybe the principles course, for example, that's published by the AGPA. You mentioned outcomes. I'm thinking about the core R battery, maybe. But I'm also hearing, and by the way, I think our fathers might have been the same man. But I'm thinking,
lucky us.
I know. But I'm thinking also that it sounds like you're saying that it's important that we have that interpersonal piece, that we're teaching our supervisees and our students to be observant.
Yes. So in terms of the formal tools, we do have to have standardized tools. It is very important that we do have a principles course and that it covers a certain number of key concepts. It covers group process. It covers what needs to happen in a group in order to make the group succeed. It covers how do you interview people to be in a group? How do you select members? What do you do if it feels like the group is going crooked and you're not sure exactly how you rope it back again? So we have all of that going on. But that is only as good as the human resource that enters the training. So some of the gift of the formal training tools is to make the most and standardize some of the human attributions that go into the people who actually choose the field. And so there are some people who are naturals for this field, because there are many people like I who think of, may not use the term, but I think of myself as an interpersonal architect.
I love that.
I help people redesign the space between them so that it works better.
So you might not be good at building houses, but you're good at building relationships and maybe teaching others how to build relationships.
And rebuilding relationships and repairing relationships and creating lifelong intimacy.
I'm going to borrow that, if that's okay. Sure. I might call myself an interpersonal architect. One other question that comes to mind is that, as you're probably aware, the American Psychological Association recently recognized group psychotherapy
Thrilled.
as
How
a
about
specialty area of practice.
Right.
What are your thoughts on how that would impact our work?
So I got my Ph.D. degree in 1975, and right before I got my Ph.D., I joined the American Psychological Association. There was no reason that I had to. I didn't have to. But I wanted that standard of excellence. I wanted to be able to say there is something that is distinguished about this organization. And I identified with being part of that organization. To say that something is a special area of expertise, like family therapy or couples therapy, two areas very dear to my heart, as you know, puts it into a category that is very, very valuable. It sort of says, this is for real, folks. Take this seriously. For example, as I'm sure you and I both agree, you don't go to a proctologist to have your head examined.
That, by the way, is one of my favorite Judith Coche quotes.
So you don't go to a family therapist to do cognitive behavioral therapy unless the family therapist is trained in both. And so we are trained as group therapists, and for the American Psychological Association, which is a standard-setting body, to say that this is a field of expertise and it deserves to be recognized as such is a statement of how far this field has come. Do you agree?
I agree totally, and I find it exciting that what we said about that fits with what you said earlier about the importance of specialized training, education, experience, not just in therapy but in group therapy.
Absolutely.
And then supervision, as you said earlier, by someone who is specialized in group therapy. That just getting supervision from a therapist is different from getting supervision on your groups by someone who specializes in groups.
Yes. A clinical supervisor, a trained, accredited clinical supervisor who is also certified in group psychotherapy would be the right person.
It's an exciting time for our field.
It is a very exciting time for our field.
So that leads me to another question. Maybe a little broader than some of the questions we've talked about, but as an educator who trains the next generation of group psychotherapists, how do you feel about the future of group psychotherapy?
Well, I'm very excited about the future of group psychotherapy. More and more people are recognizing it as an area of specialization with a whole lot of skills attached and a lot of credentialing, but also a lot of value. The research is moving forward in leaps and bounds. We are figuring out not only that it works, but why it works. But as a clinician who has worked with couples and families for a very long time, I am aware that more and more people are seeking happiness in ways that are interpersonal. And that people are recognizing that in order to be really happy, they need to know how to get along with other people. They need to love other people skillfully. They can't just hope that it all works out for the best. And I cannot think of a better modality to help people learn how to get along better together than a group in which there is a very skillful leader and a whole lot of enthusiastic and disciplined and people with integrity who want to help each other learn how. So, as you know, I have spent a long time developing a model of couples group therapy, and that modality lends itself better than just plain couples therapy to helping people shift the way they think about marriage so that they transform their lives. And without the power of a group, it would go much more slowly. It would actually be more expensive, and I think there would be a lot more sadness. So that's why.
I love that enthusiasm and that hope. I always say that group is our most social therapy. I tell parents of kids I work with that it's the most social option we have. It's the most interpersonally engaged option that we have, and I share that enthusiasm.
I know you do.
You know I do.
Lucky,
We both do.
Yeah.
We both do. It's been great talking with you.
It has. It's fun.
And
to talk.
I'm excited about our future and the future of our field.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.